Hello, everybody. I am Cody.
And I'm Brent.
And we are the Hugonauts, here to review and discuss for you the best science fiction novels of all time. This week we have a little bit of a different episode. Isn't that right, Brent?
Yeah, the Hugo Awards are coming up. The nominees are out. So the Hugos are one of the biggest awards of the year for sci-fi and fantasy books. And anyone can vote, which is exciting. So we're going to talk about all the books and we're going to rank them from 6 to 1. So it should be fun.
And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about how you can vote if you'd like. And don't forget to like, subscribe, download, follow, all that stuff we always say. If you want to catch the next episode that we're doing on Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie, that'll be our next one. We'd also like to say thank you to everyone we've just reached above average 500 downloads per episode. It's growing quickly. And it's a project, Brent and I have been friends for a long time, and it's a project we started for fun to be able to chat with somebody about all these great books we were reading. And it's really fun doing it, as
with
a
all
community
of you.
and seeing the science fiction community and getting to chat about stuff that sometimes can be a really solo activity.
Yeah, it's been so great to sort of see the more and more people sort of becoming Hugonauts and just having people to talk about these books and figure out what's great. And it's a big world, but it still feels like it's sometimes hard to find good sci-fi nerds. So I'm glad we've been able to find so many and talk about these fun things. So yeah, it's been emotional and fun seeing things go well. So anyway, should we do this week though? Should we do the list?
Yeah. So thank you all. And now let's do a list. Our first list.
So what we're going to do is we're going to give a quick summary of each book. We're going to put them in order from sort of worst to best. And we'll do a quick summary, talk about what we liked, didn't like, and what sort of a person this book would appeal to. Because even if there's a book that we didn't love, maybe it's right up your alley. So we'll lay that out. To start with, number 6 is Master of Djinn by Djèlí Clark. It's a fantasy book, and it's set in 1912 in Cairo, and an Egyptian effectively invented magic 40 years ago. And so Cairo is cosmopolitan, rich, and awesome. Fatma is the youngest woman working for the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities when someone murders all the members of a secret brotherhood dedicated to Al-Jahiz, the guy who invented magic, basically. And so she's on the case. The murderer, in fact, claims to be Al-Jahiz, and alongside her ministry colleagues and her clever, hot girlfriend, Sati, they have to unravel the mystery and restore peace, or not, and it goes badly. You can guess which way that goes. Anyway, so that's the setup. What'd you think of it, Cody?
Well, like you said, if you like steampunk and genies, like Middle Eastern Egyptian mythology kind of fare, this is for you. And the setting is done really well. It's cool world building. It's a fun place to be and to see everything play out.
That part definitely, in my opinion, though, was the best part. The setting is fun. It's just a cool place, whatever. Genies and crazy gear, magical gear-driven contraptions everywhere. It's fun. I'd say it reads a lot like a screenplay. This was your point, but I think you nailed it spot on. Basically, it's they're always just talking with the next person who very quickly tells them oh yeah, go talk to that guy for the next clue. All the exposition is just through dialogue, and it's hyper linear. And it kind of feels like I've read this book before because it uses all the tropes for how you tell a screenplay action story.
It's like a new skin on an action movie, like a Marvel movie or something, where there's a lot of exposition to get to your next point, or trading different characters around the room, trading sentences of exposition.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll sort of say about that is a big part of the tension through the first half, I'd say 60% of the book, is how the bad guy, the villain, is getting their power. But the book is called Master of Djinn, so you can maybe guess where they're getting their power from the title. So it's not such a mystery. Anyway, I'd say you will.
You're gonna do. You'll love it.
Yeah. I'll do you love it. You'll do you hate it.
Okay.
You'll love this book if you're into the steampunk genies, Egyptian and Middle Eastern mythology, and these badass lesbian detectives with their fancy hats and suits, and they're all very well dressed. So yeah.
Yeah, and you won't like it as much if you're looking for something unexpected in your plot, um, and if you're looking for a kind of like novel fantasy or science fiction ideas, speculation, and if you're looking for science fiction, because this is a fantasy book, fantasy novel.
Well, the next book on the list, though, is sci-fi,
science
right? So
fiction.
what's our number 5?
Number 5 is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is sci-fi, like we just said, but I wrote it down and then I read it by accident. And it's I'm not used to doing the summaries. Yeah, in a book entirely without human characters, despite their reference, they still exist in the universe. The Galaxy and the Ground Within revolves around what is essentially an alien truck stop called the Five Hop, run by a mammalian alien and her adolescent child who has yet to choose their gender. When communications and transportation breakdown happens in the orbit of the planet, the diverse group of alien travelers who have been docked at the Five Hop have to kill time, solve problems, and navigate their prejudices about each other. It's fun, cute, easy read with lovable characters that feels kind of like a warm sitcom.
Yeah.
Warm go-to-bed sitcom.
For sure.
Yeah, you want to kick us?
I think my favorite thing about this book was the voice, like Becky Chambers' voice, basically, or the voice she's choosing to use here at least. It's incredibly like fun and friendly and lighthearted, and it's just nice to spend time with.
Right, and she's kind of the I would say the front runner in, or one of the front runners in the subgenre called hope punk, which is about it's writing science fiction that doesn't rely on kind of violence or catastrophe for conflict. It's generally happier. It has a happier vibes, happier message. And, like we were talking about earlier, adding punk to words to make new fantasy or science fiction.
Punk. It's definitely hope, but like, is it punk? I don't know.
Right, because
anyway.
to your point, it's like cyberpunk. It's like, okay, they were dressed like punks. There's other steampunk. It's kind of, I don't know.
They still have trench coats, I guess.
I guess it's just like a trend within genre naming itself to just tack on punk to fantasy and science fiction. If anyone knows anything about this, please feel free to correct and enlighten us.
Yeah, for sure. I think the big mystery in the beginning of this book, and what sort of turned into my biggest gripe, the big mystery at the beginning is like, who are all these people and like, what are their problems? But I was sort of like waiting for what the big central conflict would be that they were all going to have to face together. And it just sort of turned out that wasn't the deal. That's not what was going to happen. It was just sort of about their individual backstories and sort of how they navigated this moment where they were stuck together.
But I think that, well, there's not really like a big central conflict or traditional conflict in the way you're describing. Like there are a lot of like each character has their own little backstory and their own conflicts, their own worries about being stuck on the planet or what they're going to do next. And they all help each other kind of sort through them. So I guess that's why I likened it to a sitcom, right? Is because it doesn't have like a big mystery or like we need to solve this huge issue. It's just more like the interpersonal and intrapersonal conflicts that resolve themselves with the help of the other characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Last point I'll make is just it's incredibly cute how much everyone wants to help this kid. Just like everybody agrees, like, oh, this kid's great. Well, we're gonna help them out a lot, and it's so cute and nice. So yeah. Anyway, who do you think will love this one?
Okay, I'll love this one. You will love it if you want a cute, friendly, fun read that, feels like the whole time everything's going to work out okay. It's a good, warm bedtime story.
Yeah, and I'll say you will not like it if you are looking for like a traditional, like dramatic central plot that like sort of unites everything and ties it all together.
Big conflict. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Number 4. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker-Chan. This is not science fiction, nor is it fantasy. In our opinions, it's basically speculative or alternative history. I guess Man in the High Tower by Philip K. Dick. High Castle, sorry, by Philip K. Dick won a Hugo, and that was just straight up alternative history. So I guess that's how it fits in. But you want to give us a summary of this one?
Yeah. So I would say my one sentence summary of this is like, what if Mulan acted more like Walter White from Breaking Bad? And I actually think that's like a pretty good total summary, but I will say a little more. So in this reimagined history of the rise of the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Yongsheng, so that's the real thing that happened. Anyway, so in the book,
person.
A little girl who's living through a famine takes the name of her brother after her father is killed by bandits, and her brother sort of like Star Wars style loses the will to live. And so she takes his name, Zhu Shengba, which is like a name with great destiny, and pretends to be a man, or I guess a boy at the beginning. So first she is a monk in a monastery and then becomes a soldier and a military officer. And she's all sort of like, all while battling with which pieces of herself are like her identity versus like the identity she has assumed. And what is the difference anymore after she starts playing this alternate life for so many years. And yeah, that's the setup.
Yeah. And, I talked a little bit about it before, but I think you have a stronger opinion on this. I think that there's maybe a little bit of context with Philip K. Dick, but it's not fantasy and it's not science fiction.
Yeah, in my opinion, this just like should not win the Hugo. Like, I don't know, in a world where genre exists, which it clearly does and matters, like, and obviously we're huge proponents of like science fiction and getting more people to like appreciate and love this genre. Like the Hugos is like one of our big times of the year to say like, hey, here's a great thing that like represents, this art form that we all love. And this just kind of like doesn't feel like it's in the art form. It's like, there are some ghosts a little bit and some like magical fire vaguely,
it's more kind of like cultural magical realism, maybe. Like it's not even magic, like it's not even.
Yeah, it doesn't impact anything.
It's not that they're not real and they're not impacting the plot, or it's just more of kind of like a cultural, like this is how they think about spirits and ghosts and ancestors.
So there were lots of entertaining things about the book, but it just like feels like it's not in the genre that the award is for. So for me, that's why I was like, yeah, definitely down on the list.
Yeah, and I will say I did really enjoy the book. So I do agree that it's not really a genre fit, but I really loved the read. I'm looking forward to the next one. It's going to be a series. And it's just a really interesting exploration of gender identity and core identity, but in a setting that also had like historical and cultural setting that is really restrictive of individual identity and of specific issues of gender identity and power, all of that. So I thought it was a great book, even though it probably doesn't fit here.
For sure. I have one other gripe while we're in the book.
The way
the main characters get out of the jams like constantly made me frustrated at like all the biggest moments. Or it was like, oh, for the people we're caring about, it's like, oh, are the wheels going to come off? Like, are they not going to be able to do their thing? They just like get out of it with like, it feels so thin. It's like that shouldn't work at all. / is not how anyway. So it's a small gripe, but it did sort of break me out of like these big tense moments that just hit me like, well, what? That's what's happening right now. So anyway, yeah.
That didn't bug me at all.
Okay. I tend to be like, so I like look for realism so much. It's like definitely one of my, as we've done this more, I've learned that's one of my like big bugaboos is like, I want to feel like the thing could be real. So anyway, that might be just a me problem.
And if you're reading a historical, like an alternative history, it's got even more.
Yeah, maybe so.
It needs to be even more realistic. So I could see that.
On that note, though, so I think you will love this if you're into historical fiction. You want to like relive Mulan with more violence, power hunger, and a lot of great search for identity.
And you're not going to like it if you are looking for a fantasy or a science fiction book, and that's what you want to be reading. It's just not that. It's a great book still, though, in my opinion.
For sure.
All right, moving on. We have number 3. Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. Definitely sci-fi. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the first book in this series, the Texkalon series. This is the second installment after Memory Called Empire.
Which won the Hugo 2 years ago.
Right. And it picks up right where memory left off, with largely the same characters. An alien armada lurks on the edges of Tex Calonley's space, and no one can communicate with it, and no one can destroy it either. And the fleet captain Nine Hibiscus, who's been recently promoted at the end of memory, does not have many options left. And in a desperate attempt at diplomacy with the mysterious invaders, the fleet captain has sent for a diplomatic envoy. Now Mahit Dismar and Three Seagrass, our faves from book 1, are still reeling from the recent upheaval of the Empire and face the impossible task of trying to communicate with a hostile entity. So this one, largely picks up where memory left off and gets a little more
like 3 weeks.
Broad.
3 weeks of gap, so little.
Yeah. And we get more broad, which the entity is introduced in memory. That's kind of the conceit at the very beginning. This is the running arc through these books.
Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting like world building and things going on for sure. But I would say it's definitely not hard sci-fi. The rules of physics like for sure don't apply. And it's not like super concerned with, why the tech works. As a great example of this, there's a scene in the beginning when a scout ship is like coming back, and it's mentioned that like, oh, they're going so fast, like they can't do that for very long. They must really be concerned about what's going on. But like in space, you whatever speed you're going, you can stay going that speed forever. That's not the thing. So anyway, physics don't apply. Is the short version of that.
But there's a lot of technology that she explores. Specifically, again, I mean, a lot of these books are about identity exploration in various ways, which a lot of just literature in general is. But I'm just apologizing for using the word identity all the time, I suppose. But a lot of her technology and what she explores, how she's exploring identity, is like through cultural marginalization. Like people who are trying to fit in to a society who are from the outskirts of it, and they're not allowed in, but also they want to be in, but also they want to maintain their individualism. And then on top of that, a lot of exploration of like artificial intelligence or like bio-enhanced human minds and what it would look like. Like we have the Imago machine from the first book, which is the person's memories who live in your head, and you basically have, our main character has two people in one. And then some hive mind kind of exploration. So there's a lot of cool ideas through the tech. It's just not maybe like explained how it actually works.
For sure. And I would say she is an incredible master of like dramatic dialogue and filling every conversation with the emotion of like all the people involved. You really know what they're feeling. You can see what they're trying to like achieve in this conversation. And it made for absolutely my favorite parts of the novel. There's these 4 or 5 moments when things are really tense, these really important conversations happening, and it just feels so real, and you're in the minds of these people who are trying to get through this difficult situation. But on the flip side, that also sort of weirdly turns into my biggest gripe with the book, because that technique is used in every conversation, even the ones that aren't like high impact about important stuff. And in those situations, it can kind of drive me crazy to hear what everyone thinks about like this small thing that clearly doesn't matter very much. So it's like the thing I love and the thing I don't love all in one.
Yeah. I think it's a good way of, she's very, very good at writing characters.
And her dialogue is great.
Are really strong. You really feel them. They all are disparate, and they all you feel a bond with a lot of them. I will say that maybe some of the ancillary characters, like you said, are a little bit confusing. Like they kind of change you have this big military empire that is presumably efficient because it's a functioning empire that controls a lot of stuff. But some of the people at the top are, especially ones who are like really with it in book 1, are now making stupid mistakes. And so there's a little bit of...
Yeah. There's a weird, like the people, it's like one of the big plot devices of the book is like the people in charge need to make bad decisions so the little people can save the day. but it feels weird in this one where like the person in charge was the little person last time, but now they're the emperor, so now they have to mess up a little bit.
Yeah,
or a lot.
yeah, exactly. So you're gonna love this book if A, you liked Memory Called Empire, because it's just a great follow-up book. It keeps going. But B, if you like kind of like dramatic political storytelling, like stuff about politics, like Foundation, for example, and hearing how many characters feel about different issues, hearing a lot of different voices and opinions about something.
Yeah. I would say you won't like it as much if, like the dialogue and the characters aren't like the big thing for you. If you're looking for like a plot-driven novel with like lots happening, this might not be the fit for your current moment.
Yeah. And with that said, we have number 2.
Woo!
We think, my
drum rolls aren't getting better; they're getting worse. So anyway,
yeah, was that a drum roll? You've done one drum roll, and that was just a yoo-hoo. So I'm not sure that
they're descending. But anyway, okay, we built this one up quite a bit. Number 2,
yeah, it's science fiction.
Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this book is about Ryland Grace, who is the sole survivor of a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and the Earth itself will perish. That's it. Unfortunately, he's got amnesia, and all he knows is he's been asleep for a very long time. He's millions and millions, so many miles from home, and his 2 crewmates are dead. And so we learn how he got through this parallel plot line of flashbacks as his memory starts to come back to him. We sort of learn what the point of this mission is and what he needs to do. And so hurtling through the space on this tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out this scientific mystery and solve this puzzle all on his own. Or is he truly alone? Who knows? Anyway, okay, so that's the setup.
We do, because we read it. Yeah, the first, it draws you right in, doesn't it?
Yeah, the first few pages of this book are like the thing that everyone ever tells writers when you're trying to write a book, like you got to get the hook right away. Like this book does it maybe more than any book I can remember in so long. The first few pages just really put you in the mind of this person who's waking up and so deeply confused, but also like smart about some things and like kind of being, funny and not too serious about the situation. It's just great. It's an unbelievable hook into the story. So super, super strong start for sure.
And did you want to talk about it continues, right? Like,
yeah. It's like the chapters are short and every single one has just like big things happening. It turns it into a crazy page turner. It's, I stayed up way too late reading this like twice and finished it in 3 days. It was that kind of book. So yeah.
And I will say, as far as, we each ranked all 6 of these, and then we took the kind of like amalgamated ranks and then re-ranked them based on like our combined scores. This was one we had some trouble with, so back and forth. I ranked it a lot lower than you did. You're at, not a lot lower, a couple spots lower than you did.
Well, because this still isn't my number 1. Our number 1 is unanimous, which if
the
people
number
know
1
the
is
list,
unanimous.
they'll know what's coming. But.
Yeah, some other ones were unanimous. This one was this one was the one we had the biggest discrepancy on. And it's real cheesy. I think it was also it's a page turner too. I agree. Like, the plot, the action happens real quickly, but it's these two forward plot lines that, happen in chunks, the flashback and the regular. The character is just cheesy. He makes jokes that are just awful. He does the thing where he's like swearing without swear words, like gosh and darn and heck, but like it feels more like Andy Weir like took out real swear words than it feels like it belongs with his character. It feels more like, oh, we got to make this PG because it's going to be such a bestseller. Anyways, there's some cheese in it, but
yeah, the jokes are bad. And what I will say there is like, it feels very Martian-esque. He's created another situation with like one scientist alone.
Which I was gonna say is like, yes, it's cheesy, but he's also playing to his strengths, which is away from writing dialogue and human to human characters. And so it works here.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes some of the like very cheesy jokes like work a little bit better because he's just like doing a science experiment by himself. So like, I don't know, there's no way to make a good joke about that, you know? So anyway, but yeah, he's like, I don't know if Andy Weir like thought about this intentionally or just because The Martian was so popular, he's like, okay, let me frame another thing like that. But, you know, he's playing to his strengths, and that's like a real thing we can all take away for our lives. You know, nobody's good at everything.
And I
do what you're good at.
I did love one of the other characters, which you'll have to find out for yourself, but
for sure.
I loved him.
Yeah. And there's, are we not going to talk about Strat? Was that
no? We can talk about Strat.
Oh, Strat's allowed. No. Oh, I know who you're talking about then now too. But yes, we can't talk about them. I agree. But they're great. Okay, so there's a character from the backstory that I do want to talk about, who I think really captures the whole book really well. Her name is Strat. She's like running Project Hail Mary, and like her job and the way she's doing things, like, does it fully make sense? Like, not quite. Do people talk like she talks? Like, no, for sure not. Is there a lot of like subtext or like big messages you need to take away? Not really. But she's the total HBIC. She is 100% in charge. She's going to let everybody know. And it's so fun. All the chapters with her in there are just great because they were super entertaining to read. So I think she like sums up the book pretty well. She's so fun.
Yeah. So you will love Project Hail Mary if you, like Andy Weir in general, of course. And if you want like a gripping page turner that will keep you up at night, just continuing to read, see what happens next. And if you love popularized science and cool scientific ideas explored.
Yeah, when we were trying to figure out like how to capture that, I was like, I think if you loved Mythbusters, you would love this, which like I did, right. And I did love this. Anyway, you will not love it if you want like complex characters or realistic dialogue, doesn't have that. Or if you're looking for sci-fi that makes it, you look at society through a new lens, it's like really just about these scientific problems and nothing else matters, and the book chooses not, like, just doesn't look at it at all. And that's like
it's
one of the
not,
things.
It's not what it's concerned with.
Not what it's concerned with. And that's definitely a big thing that sci-fi is about, is like help us look at our society through a new lens. Anyway, not this one. So if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to like this one.
Yeah. Number one. Finally, we get to number one, which was, as we said before, unanimous. We both absolutely loved this book. This is Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki.
So great. So great.
As far as genre, it's a little bit of everything. It's kind of like, normal, mundane literary fiction mixed, and there's some sci-fi and some fantasy in it. It's a very cool genre blend, but I'll read the summary first. Light from Uncommon Stars is an amalgam of fantasy, sci-fi, and mundane modern life in the San Gabriel Valley near Los Angeles. Katrina Wynn is a transgender teenage runaway with severe passion for playing violin. She soon runs into Shizuka Satomi, a revered and feared violin teacher who has a deal with the devil to deliver souls of her students to hell. And also in the mix is Lon Tron, the owner of Stargate Donuts, who is also a real starship captain and the matriarch of a family of refugees who have hidden on Earth to escape the wars of the Galactic Empire. And then these characters kind of orbit each other, meet new characters in a really gripping novel that explores gender, cultural, socioeconomic, and creative identity in really good prose. This is good writing.
Yeah, for sure is. It's also like, it's so calming in a really interesting way that like, normally I'm not a person who like, I don't want to like to be put to sleep by a book I'm reading, but this was like simultaneously like calming and gripping and teaching me so much about the world. Like, it's just such a wild, I can't believe it pulled it all off, honestly. As a good example,
it's great writing. It's a great novel. It's what a novel should be. Yeah.
I don't think a great novel has to be calm, but I think doing all the things she did and having it be calm, like, yes, for sure.
I think a great novel has to do all those things, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily be calm.
As a great example of that, food, like a dish that they're about to eat must be described in this book. Like, I'm not joking. I think like 200 times you hear like a delicious sounding explanation of like Hainan chicken with string beans and onions and blah, blah, blah. It's just like a really nice explanation of food, including a mall food court Cinnabon. You get like a great description of how juicy and delicious.
But what Aoki and why it's so good is because what Aoki is doing in these descriptions is giving us insight into the characters, into their histories, how they're feeling in the moment, what their cultural upbringing was like, and how they feel in situ now. Like there's so much richness, so many rich descriptions of food that also richly describe the characters
for sure.
simultaneously.
No, I'm not saying the food thing was bad. I just thought it was so
different
I know. Good and great. Yeah.
I was just adding to what you were saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll also say you won't know it's sci-fi for the first few chapters.
Or fantasy.
Yeah. But it feels like this like wonderful fusion of magical realism and sci-fi, and just like, trust us, you should keep going. So good. Yeah.
And it's definitely its own thing. It's new. I haven't read anything like it. And from a genre perspective, it's a really cool, interesting blend. And it also, it builds slowly. And there's a lot of little mysteries about the characters and about the world they're in, and the genre itself is kind of a mystery. And it all unfolds, it all unfolds evenly in a very satisfying pace.
This book also opened my eyes to basically how hard it would be to be trans. The number of people who just put Katrina in such shitty situations, sometimes dangerous situations. Like it's a book that like really puts you in someone else's shoes, and in such a great way, that helps add a lot of understanding for me. And I loved it. It was so great. It was felt like I was in someone else's head.
Yeah. Also the kind of, even to remove agency of individuals, the social structures that we have that are exclusive, that make it more difficult for trans people and other people. There's a lot of exploration about what it's like to be a refugee here too. Lantron is fleeing from a galactic empire, but it's a allegory for being a refugee.
Yeah, well, she has a donut shop in LA, and the vast majority of the donut shops in LA are run by Cambodians who are fleeing the war in Vietnam and the aftermath, the Pol Pot. So anyway, yes, they set up a donut shop for their galactic refugees. As a Southern Californian, there's like a lot of great stuff for me in this too. Like a lot of the places are like real. They're talking about, we really have a giant, it's not paper mache, it's like 5 stories tall, but there are real giant donuts 5 stories tall all across the city. It's super weird.
Yeah. and to your point about empathizing, that's another thing that makes it really just truly great writing. It is writing at its finest, as an art form. You're really learning something new, a new way to see the world and to see people who are different, and in an instinctual way that lasts, that sticks with you.
I think so too.
So, that being said, that's why you'll love it, because I just used that section when I talked.
I think also if you love food or music,
yeah, there's a lot of detail on music. It's really well thought out in the music world, like learning about the classical music competition world. It's super cool. Just a well-written, good writing at its best. That's if you'll like this book, if you like good stuff.
It's like sci-fi and it's fantasy and it's magical realism, and it's everything. It's so many things. Anyway.
And we had trouble with this. We had trouble with the "you won't like it if," but there's an obvious answer.
Absolutely. If you are looking for like a plot-driven, page-turning, like sci-fi book, this isn't it, frankly. Like, it's just not. And that's okay. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes you want to stay up all night reading the book. So,
yeah. If you're looking for Project Hail Mary, read Project Hail Mary. There's a very defined gap between the 1 and the 2 here, I think, in terms of like what you're looking for to read.
For sure. Well, it's almost like we're kind of like, there's a lot of years where it's hard to write great sci-fi books. I feel like this year we have there's these aren't like ends of a spectrum or anything like that, but like for two very different like sort of kinds of tastes, we've got like a good example of them. It's great. It's a good year.
Yeah, and so those are our 6. We're really interested to see who wins and also vote because, yeah, I mean, our number 6 won the Nebula a couple months ago.
Which was shocking. The Nebulas though make no sense. So you have to be a writer in the Science Fiction Writers of not America anymore, Association. They just changed it to. But anyway, it's 4 writers, but my gripe with it is they give you no time. We were also going to do an episode talking about the Nebulas, but they only announced the nominees like a few weeks before the voting on the finalists. And I can't speak for the people in the Writers Association. I'm not. But for me, like we read several of them, but there was no way to read them all in that really short span of weeks.
I'd already read 2 of them.
Yeah,
and I didn't even have time. You can't read 4 more novels in it. Yeah. So anyways, interested to see how it shakes at the Hugos. And I would like to, Brent, cue you up in a not so subtle way to tell us about how voting works.
Well, we're excited to vote and you all can too. So there are 2 ways to be able to vote. So one is to go to Worldcon, which is like the biggest sci-fi convention of the year. This year it's in Chicago. It's like a global thing. So it being in America I know only like half our listeners are in America. So if you're in Australia, this is not a close one for you, but next year's in Chengdu. That's also still not close for you because Australia is far from everything. But anyway, if you're in America, this one's close and should be fun. So you can go, or you can vote if you just buy a membership online. It's $50 to be able to vote effectively. And we'll put the link in the description, but if you just Google SciCon 8, you'll find it. And the event itself is Labor Day weekend in Chicago. And they announce the winner that night, and votes are due
on Sunday night.
Yeah, they announced the winner Sunday night of Labor Day weekend. Votes are due August 11th. So this episode will be coming out on the 26th. So if you have about 2 weeks to be able to vote. So if you want to, you've definitely got time to vote this year, which we're excited about. Should be fun.
Right. And there's 16 other categories other than best novel. There's like best series, best short, best novella, best fan cast, best fanzine. There's tons of different there's 17 different categories you can vote in. And we're also pretty stoked about this because we're actually going to attend SciCon this year. We're going to come and be there. So if you're there, please come say hi. We are literally rolling out the red carpet. We thought of this idea a couple weeks ago, and we figured out the logistics, but we're going to set up a little step and repeat and a red carpet and roll it out and wear our little suits and interview authors and attendees and everyone who's interested in science fiction like it's a red carpet. Because we think that prose and writers just don't get the attention and kind of celebrity they deserve in larger culture versus, with movies and TV and all sorts of other celebrity music.
Well, yeah. And
so we wanted to do a
celebrity culture too.
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
ask like one dumb celebrity style question and then like real questions about creativity. But we'll ask one dumb Hollywood question about like what you're wearing or whatever. We wanted
to do something subversive that also feels special to the people who we don't think get enough attention. So drop us a line if you're going to be there. DM us on socials, or that's the option. Leave a YouTube.
No, yeah, DM us on Twitter or Instagram, or send us an email, hugonautspodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, let us know if you're going to be there. We'd love to, meet all the rest of the Hugonauts. So yeah,
and chat about this list. See if we got it right. See what you think. Let us know as well. Otherwise, Brent, I will see you shortly, and we will see the rest of you in a couple weeks.
For sure. Later, y'all. Keep reading.